The morning Lana came home pretending to be sick, I knew she was lying. 23 years of marriage teaches you things about a person's tells. The way she clutched her stomach was too theatrical, like she'd practiced it in the car. The pale complexion looked more like guilt than nausea. "Dean, I think I need to see a doctor," she whispered, leaning against our kitchen counter with all the drama of a soap opera actress. I poured my coffee slowly, watching her performance in my peripheral vision. Lana had always been beautiful. Auburn hair, green eyes that could convince you the sky was purple if she wanted. But today, those eyes wouldn't meet mine. "What kind of symptoms?" I asked, keeping my voice neutral. After 15 years managing construction crews, I'd learned to read people. Lana was hiding something big. Stomach pain, nausea, just awful cramping. She doubled over slightly, adding a small moan for effect. I set down my mug and grabbed my keys from the hook. "Let's go then." "What? Now?" The panic in her voice was real, even if the illness wasn't. "You said you need a doctor. St. Luke's has an excellent emergency department." I headed for the door, not waiting for her response. "Dean, wait. Maybe we should call my regular physician first, or—" "St. Luke's," I repeated, opening the front door. The morning air was crisp, typical for October in Maine. "Dr. Marver there is supposed to be excellent. Porter mentioned her last week." Lana froze completely. If I hadn't been watching for it, I might have missed the way her face went from fake pale to genuinely white. Interesting reaction to a doctor's name. The drive to St. Luke's took 20 minutes. Lana spent 18 of them trying to convince me she felt better, that maybe we should turn around, that perhaps urgent care would be more appropriate. I kept driving, my hands steady on the wheel while my mind raced through possibilities. Porter Keller had been my friend since high school. Now he worked administration at St. Luke's, and last week at the Bent Nail, he'd mentioned Dr. Cleo Marver, brilliant physician, married to some real estate hotshot named Tanner Jossman. The way Lana reacted to that name told me everything I needed to know. "Dean, really, I'm feeling much better now." Lana tried again as we pulled into the hospital parking lot. "Good. Then the exam should be quick." I parked near the emergency entrance and got out, not giving her a chance to bolt. Inside, the lobby buzzed with typical hospital activity. I approached the reception desk where a young nurse looked up expectantly. "My wife needs to see Dr. Marver," I said clearly, loud enough for Lana to hear behind me. "Is this an emergency situation?" the nurse asked. "Stomach issues, possible infection," I replied, watching Lana's reflection in the glass partition. She looked ready to run. 20 minutes later, we sat in a consultation room when Dr. Cleo Marver walked in. She was an attractive woman in her 40s, with short, dark hair and intelligent eyes that immediately focused on Lana with unmistakable recognition. "Mrs. Callix?" Dr. Marver said coolly, closing the door behind her. "How interesting to meet you." Lana's breathing became shallow. "I think there's been a mistake." "No mistake," I interrupted. "My wife has been experiencing stomach pain and nausea. I thought you might be able to help determine the cause." Dr. Marver's smile was arctic. "Of course, these symptoms can indicate various conditions, some quite specific infections that require immediate attention." "Infections?" Lana's voice cracked. "Oh yes. In fact, I recently treated a patient with a very particular condition. My husband, actually. Tanner Jossman. Perhaps you know him?" The silence in that room was deafening. Lana gripped the examination table so tightly her knuckles went white. "We'll need to run some tests," Dr. Marver continued, her professional demeanor never wavering, despite the obvious personal stakes. "Dirt work, cultures, standard procedure for these types of intimate infections. Before we dive deeper into this story, I have one small request. Please subscribe, drop a like, comment, and hit that hype button to boost this channel so more people can discover these incredible Reddit stories. Lana finally found her voice. I don't consent to… Actually, you do, I said, pulling folded papers from my jacket pocket. Medical power of attorney. I had Porter prepare it this morning while you were getting ready. Dr. Marver examined the document briefly. Everything appears to be in order. Nurse Williams will take the samples. For the next hour, Lana sat in stunned silence while the medical machinery processed her secrets. I made small talk with Dr. Marver, who proved to be remarkably composed for a woman whose husband was clearly cheating. Results should be ready shortly, she said, checking her tablet. Mr. Callix, could I speak with you privately? We stepped into the hallway, leaving Lana alone with her thoughts. Your wife has the same infection my husband was treated for last month, Dr. Marver said quietly. It's not life-threatening, but it's definitely transmitted through intimate contact. I figured as much. I want you to know that I've been suspicious of Tanner for months. This confirms everything. Her composure cracked slightly. What do you plan to do? I considered the question. What would you do? Honestly, I'd want to watch them both squirm before I took them for everything they're worth. Then maybe we should work together. Dr. Marver's smile returned, but this time it held a sharp edge. I think I'd like that very much. That evening, I sat at the bent nail, nursing a beer while Lana stayed home, supposedly recovering from her medical ordeal. The bar was my second home, a place where construction workers, hospital staff, and locals mixed together over cheap drinks and expensive gossip. Barb Morrison, my neighbor for the past decade, slid onto the adjacent stool without invitation. At 65, she knew everyone's business and wasn't shy about sharing it. Heard your Lana was at the hospital today, she said, signaling the bartender for her usual whiskey. News travels fast. Porter mentioned it to his wife, who told me at the grocery store. Barb leaned closer, lowering her voice. Also heard she's been seen around town with that real estate fellow, Tanner Jossman. I kept my expression neutral. Is that so? My friend Janet works at the Lakeside Inn. Says they've been regular customers for about 6 months now. Always pay cash, always use your wife's name for the registration. The audacity of it hit me like a sledgehammer. Not only was Lana cheating, but she was using our joint account to fund her affair and registering under her real name like she didn't care who found out. Janet also mentioned something interesting, Barb continued. Last week, she saw your truck in their parking lot, but when she looked closer, it wasn't you driving. Really? Really? Woman behind the wheel, man in the passenger seat. Looked cozy. I finished my beer and stood up. Thanks for the information, Barb. Dean? She grabbed my arm gently. Whatever you're planning, be smart about it. Always am. The next morning, I called in sick to work. First time in 3 years. Lana was already gone, claiming she had client meetings all day. Perfect. I drove to the Lakeside Inn and found Janet behind the front desk. She was a thin woman in her 50s with kind eyes and a conspiratorial smile. You're Dean Callix, she said before I could introduce myself. Guilty. I understand my wife has been a regular guest here. Janet's expression softened with sympathy. Room 247, usually Tuesday and Thursday afternoons. I'm sorry, hun. I always wondered if you knew. I know now. Would it be possible to see the registration records? I shouldn't, but… She glanced around the empty lobby, then pulled out a binder. Here's the past 6 months. The entries were damning. Lana's signature clear as day, every week for 24 weeks. The room charges totaled nearly $3,000. Money that came directly from our joint checking account. Janet, I need a favor. Next time they're here, could you call me? Of course, sweetie. They usually show up around 2 on Tuesdays. Tuesday was tomorrow. I thanked Janet and drove home to prepare. That evening, Lana returned with shopping bags and a guilty smile. Feeling better today? She announced, kissing my cheek like nothing had changed. Good to hear. How were your client meetings? Productive. Very productive. She busied herself unpacking groceries, avoiding eye contact. I watched her performance with new clarity. Every gesture, every word choice, every fake smile, all of it calculated to maintain her double life. The woman I'd loved for over 2 decades had become a stranger. "I was thinking," I said casually, "maybe we should take a vacation soon. Get away from everything." Lana's hands paused on a box of cereal. "Oh, that's sweet. But work is really busy right now. Maybe in a few months?" "Sure, no rush." But there was a rush. Tomorrow, everything would change. Tuesday afternoon, Janet's call came at 1:47 p.m. They just checked in. I was already in the parking lot, sitting in my friend Albie's truck with a clear view of room 247. Albie, my apprentice, and the closest thing I had to a son, had insisted on coming along for moral support. "You sure about this, Dean?" he asked for the 3rd time. "Absolutely." At 3:30, the door to 247 opened. Lana emerged first, smoothing her hair and checking her appearance in the window reflection. Tanner Jossman followed, a tall, well-dressed man in his 40s with the kind of confident swagger that comes from never facing real consequences. They were laughing about something as they walked toward the parking lot, completely oblivious to my presence. Lana got into my truck, the one she'd apparently been driving to her affairs, while Tanner headed for a silver BMW. I waited until they were both in their vehicles before getting out of Albie's truck and walking directly to the BMW. Tanner was checking his phone, probably scheduling his next betrayal. I knocked on his window. He looked up, startled, then rolled it down with obvious annoyance. "Can I help you?" "You're Tanner Jossman." "Yes, and you are?" "Dean Callix, Lana's husband." The color drained from his face. In my peripheral vision, I saw Lana frantically trying to start my truck, but I'd disabled it that morning, removed a crucial fuse that would take her 20 minutes to figure out. "Look, I don't know what you think. I think you've been sleeping with my wife for 6 months," I said conversationally. "I think you've been using my truck and my money to do it, and I think you gave her the same infection you gave your wife." Tanner's mouth opened and closed like a fish. "I have no idea what you're talking about." "Dr. Marver might disagree. She's very thorough with her medical records." That hit home. Tanner's face went from pale to green. "You can't prove anything." I pulled out my phone and showed him photos of the hotel registration book, bank statements showing the charges, and a screenshot of Lana's text messages that Dr. Marver had helped me obtain through perfectly legal means. "Actually, I can prove everything." I leaned closer to his window. "But I'm not interested in ruining you, Tanner. I'm interested in watching you ruin yourself." "What do you want?" "Nothing. This conversation never happened, but I'd suggest you have an honest talk with your wife soon, because she's already planning to take you for everything you're worth." I walked away, leaving him sitting in his BMW with his world crashing down around him. Behind me, Lana had finally gotten my truck started and was pulling out of the parking lot at dangerous speed. Let the games begin. The final confrontation came exactly 1 week later, orchestrated with the precision of a construction project and the drama Lana had always craved. Dr. Marver had worked quickly. By Wednesday, she'd filed for divorce and frozen all joint assets. By Friday, she'd shared Tanner's medical records with his real estate firm's partners, perfectly legal since she was his treating physician, and they'd requested information about his extended sick leave. Meanwhile, I'd had copies of the hotel records and bank statements delivered to Lana's parents, her sister, and her closest friends. Not out of spite, but because she'd been telling them I was emotionally distant and possibly cheating. They deserved the truth. Saturday evening, I was back at the Bent Nail when both Lana and Tanner walked in separately, each looking for me. The bar was crowded. Half the town was there for the weekly trivia night. Lana saw me first. She approached with tears in her eyes and desperation in her voice. "Dean, please, we need to talk. I can explain everything." "I'm sure you can." I didn't look up from my beer. It was a mistake, a terrible mistake. I never meant for it to happen. Which part? The affair? Or getting caught? The bar had gone quiet around us. Barb was at her usual spot. Janet from the hotel was playing trivia with her team, and Porter had stopped by after his shift. Perfect audience. That's when Tanner made his entrance, looking haggard and desperate. He spotted Lana and marched over with the kind of righteous anger that only comes from complete self-delusion. "This is your fault," he said to her, loud enough for everyone to hear. "You said your husband was clueless. You said he'd never find out." Lana's face went white. "Tanner, don't what? Don't tell everyone how you planned this whole thing? How you said we could be together once you got rid of him?" The bar was silent now. Even the trivia host had stopped talking. I finally looked up from my beer. "Actually, Tanner, she was planning to get rid of you too. Dr. Marver found some interesting text messages on your phone. Want me to read them out loud?" "You're bluffing." I pulled out my phone and began reading. "Tanner is so gullible. He actually thinks I'm going to leave Dean for him, as if I'd give up half of everything for a real estate agent with a receding hairline." The crowd murmured. Someone snickered. "That's not real," Lana protested, but her voice lacked conviction. "There's more," I continued. "Dean is suspicious, but too stupid to figure anything out. I can string this along for months while I decide what I actually want." The murmuring got louder. Barb was openly grinning. Tanner turned on Lana with fury. "You said you loved me. I never said that. You absolutely said that." In room 247, right after, "Shut up!" Lana screamed, finally losing her composure completely. "Both of you just shut up!" But it was too late. The whole sordid story was out there, witnessed by half the town. Lana looked around at the faces staring back at her, some shocked, some disgusted, some openly entertained by the drama. "Dean," she tried one last time, "please, we can work this out." I stood up, left money on the bar, and walked toward the door. "No, Lana, we really can't." As I reached the exit, I heard Tanner's voice behind me. "This isn't over, Callix." I turned back one final time. "Actually, it is. Your wife filed for divorce yesterday. Your business partners received copies of everything this morning. And Lana?" I looked at my wife of 23 years, standing in the middle of a crowded bar with her secrets exposed and her lies unraveling. "You'll be hearing from my attorney on Monday." I walked out into the cool October night, leaving them both to face the consequences of their choices. Behind me, the bar erupted in conversation as the gossip mill kicked into high gear. For the first time in months, I felt like I could breathe again. The truth, as it turned out, really could set you free.